Good morning for those of you on the West Coast. Good afternoon for those of you on the East Coast. My name is Brian Jambor, and welcome to Partner Office Hours, brought to you by Nacelle. Appreciate DJ Rutherford for that amazing opening there. We've got with us Jacob Tuman, who's our partner account manager, manages all of our agency partners. We're really excited about today's Partner Office Hours session. And with that, I'll transition it to Jake, who's going to give you a little insight on what we're going to talk about. Jake?
Thanks, Brian. So yeah, for today's agenda, first and foremost, we have a few partner updates that I'd like to share with everybody. But then secondly, when it comes to our topic today, Lincoln will be discussing Google Lighthouse and how to implement that and best practices when using Nacelle. And then finally, we'll have an open Q&A. And remember, the first 3 partners that ask questions during Q&A will get a $15 Starbucks gift card. So really excited to give that away and sort of foster your questions to help answer them. So in terms of a few partner updates, first and foremost, as always, please join us on our Slack instance to help join the community and grow more conversations as it relates to Nacelle. If you're not already part of it, please reach out to me or another partner manager, and we're happy to add you, but also make sure other teammates on your team are having access to this, because there's a lot of good content that's announced there and a great way to start conversations. Then secondly, we're really excited. It's very soon now. We're launching our partner directory. This is a great opportunity for all of our partners to showcase themselves and to be promoted via Nacelle. So if you haven't already, please reach out to your partner account manager to make sure your listing is up to date and ready to go before our launch very soon. And thirdly, and this one's very exciting, right now, we have an opportunity for all of our partners to get an awesome promotion incentive. What that means is that any clients that you are speaking to that are interested in going headless and working with Nacelle, we are adamant about providing these sort of subsidy, if you will, to help promote that building cost associated with the project as a whole. So please reach out to myself, Brian, or Unita if you have any questions about that. But this is a really great opportunity that ends by January 31st. And then finally, we have new content available. We have a co-branded one-pager that you're able to use out in the field. It's a great way to exemplify Nacelle and providing fast lightning speeds for your merchants. Please reach out to your partner account manager like myself again, or Unita if you're interested in using that as well. So with that, I'll send it back to Brian.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate those partner updates. We're really, really excited to have Lincoln Cross with us today. Lincoln's an engagement manager here at Nacelle. Lincoln has a lot of experience deploying headless PWAs powered by Nacelle, utilizing static site generation, and he's just a really, really smart guy when it comes to utilizing Google Lighthouse. So he's going to help us demystify that and provide some great insights on best practices. Lincoln, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you for that intro, Brian. Hey, everybody on the call. My name's Lincoln. I'm an implementation manager for Nacelle. So I have a lot of experience with our early builds, helping guide people through that headless implementation process, be it a merchant in-house team or our agency partners who are doing great work for the merchants out there. So with that, we wanted to take the time today to talk about Google Lighthouse. We'll be talking, what is it? We'll define the metrics that are contained within it, as well as core web vitals, which you may have heard thrown around the forums or performance articles out there on the web. And then where does Nacelle fit in? And finally, I'll do a demo on a site we should all be familiar with so that you can see it in action. All right, so Google Lighthouse, or just Lighthouse, is an open source automated tool for improving the quality of web pages. You can run it against any web page. So what it is it's a thing that Google provides that allows you to capture some key metrics, and it ranks your website against other websites. This is actually great because for a long time, Google was a bit of a black box. You didn't really know how Google was ranking your website, what you needed to do to get your organic search result in a better position, short of the standard SEO stuff. So Google has this new commitment to transparency. Google Lighthouse and Core Web Vitals are a part of that. So it's pulling back the curtain on how Google ranks websites, and there's a simple way to run Google Lighthouse for non-technical folk via a Chrome extension, which I'll show you during the demo. So this screen here, and we're going to get into what these metrics actually mean, but there's 6 Google Lighthouse metrics that are weighted to accumulate your overall performance score. So on the far right column there, you see the weighting. A few things are 10%. You got a 25% for largest contentful paint, and then a 30% for total blocking time. So all of these metrics are important, and they all contribute to your overall performance score. But when we start defining what largest contentful paint is and what the total blocking time is, you'll see why those are such critical metrics and why Google is rewarding sites that are doing them well and punishing sites in a way if you're slacking on your LCP or your TBD. All right, so defining these metrics. So first, contentful paint. First, the first thing that is happening, contentful paint, something getting painted to the screen. So this metric defines when the browser first renders any text or image, etc. It's the first thing you see. So if you're a user and you click on the link on Google, how long does it take after you click on the link to show something on the screen, even if you can't interact with it? A similar metric is speed index. This is kind of not a clearly defined metric like first contentful paint, but is the average time at which visible parts of the page are displayed. Largest contentful paint, back again to things being displayed on the screen. Largest meaning the biggest or the most important. So the render time of the largest visible image or text block. So if for most of our merchants, they have kind of hero banners, that might be a largest contentful paint. If you were predominantly like a news article site or a blog site, it might be your main article or something that you're posting. So this is one of those metrics that Google weights heavily because it's the most important thing on the web page. So timing that is critical. Time to interactive, how long it takes for a page to become fully interactive. We'll get into this more a little later because there's a lot of ways to define this and test it. But for now, just know that the time to interactive is how long it takes for a page to become fully interactive when a user can click on it and their click is responded to within a number of milliseconds. And related to that as well is total blocking time. And that's this is a bit of a wordy explanation, but the total amount of time between first contentful paint, that first thing being painted to the screen, and time to interactive when a user can click on something, where the main thread was blocked for long enough to prevent input responsiveness. So we've all had this experience where we go to a site, a button shows up that we want to click on, we go to click on it, and the page doesn't respond. Zunes, thwarted again. So very frustrating. Google doesn't want this happening in the modern web. So total blocking time calculates how long your mouse input click is going to be blocked by tasks that are occupying the main thread of JavaScript processing. And we'll get into why this is later on. And then finally, cumulative layout shift is the total of every unexpected layout shift that occurs during the entire lifespan of a page. Put simply, when you navigate to a website page and it's loading, we've all had it happen where we see the button we want to click, we're just about to click it, and then an image pops up that's an ad. Ooh, really frustrating. So Google, again, is trying to punish this behavior. You should have a stable web page, something that isn't moving around as things are loading. Very simple to accomplish with modern frameworks. There's no excuse for it. Short of not knowing. So that's why we're having this session, and we'll go into how to solve that later on. All right, so Google Core Web Vitals. These are 3 Web Vitals that Google has picked as core, meaning that they're important. And as we saw, there's different weightings. Some of these are higher weighted, and that's another reason they're core. But if you see Core Web Vitals going around, these are the 3 that Google's talking about. LCP, largest contentful paint. We just learned about it, how long it takes for the biggest thing to come up on the screen. CLS, cumulative layout shift, what we just talked about, how much the page is moving as you load it. And then finally, first input delay, FID. This is a new term. It wasn't covered on the last ones, but it's a new term because it's not possible to simulate a mouse click. So first input delay, or how long it takes after a user clicks on something for the page to then load, is a real user metric. It requires real user data. There are third-party tools that do this, but Google can't test for it because they're using robot crawlers to get these metrics. So what that means is they combine the total blocking time, or how long the main thread is occupied and the user's mouse click won't register, and time to interactive, how long it takes after first contentful paint for the page to become interactable. So first input delay is a real user metric, can't be simulated, but it represents the combination of total blocking time and time to interactive. So those are the 3 core web vitals that Google wants us to focus on to create outstanding websites. So where does Nacelle fit in? So Nacelle, as you already know, decouples the front end and the back end. This is incredibly powerful because it enables performant front end frameworks like Vue and React. It allows you to unleash the power of your devs beyond Shopify Liquid. You don't have to create hacky solutions to overcome Shopify's inherent limitations. Suddenly you can use a Vue or a React, any flavor thereof, to use their native tools and have full power over what the front end application is doing. Nacelle is that in between, that composable data layer that allows you to ingest all of your data from your PIM, your CMS, any of your backend tech stack, and then push that in a single API to the front end. That way your developers don't have to worry about spending their time setting up API connectors and dealing with all the data infrastructure stuff. They can put their full focus onto what they do best, which is making high performance modern web applications. What Nacelle also does is it allows you to use your favorite CDN or hosting platform. So Vercel or Netlify delivers your entire website on edge networks, putting the data directly next to your end users. And it does so in a pre-built fashion. So you're not waiting for your server to build a website. You're not waiting for that data to transfer across the world. If you have international users or even across the US, you've got those edge networks standing by on an elastic core that can scale and contract depending on your website traffic at the time. This is huge because a lot of these performance scores are calculated in milliseconds. So every little gain you can make makes a big difference when it comes to your ranking against other websites. Using a CDN, using a performant front end is going to enable that. And then finally, Nacelle powers the static site generation and single page application. A true progressive web application needs these technologies of pre-building the site before a user hits it, so that when they're navigating within the site, everything's ready to go. Images, pages are already pre-built, and they get those lightning fast page-to-page load speeds of a single application. The downside of this is that it takes a lot of data. It takes a high performance API to deliver the website to Vercel or Netlify, to the hosting platform, and to get that data when it's needed. If you tried to do that with a standard API, it would crumble. But Nacelle has built out the infrastructure so that you don't have to worry about that. You have one API that's pulling in all of your data. It's pre-indexed and ready to go. And with that, we'll transition over to a demo of Google Lighthouse. All right, so here's my screen. So like I mentioned before, Google Lighthouse is an extension. If you just Google Lighthouse extension, it's the first one that comes up, and then you can download it and attach it to Chrome. For our demo today, we'll be using bestbuy.com, the premier retailer of all your electronic needs. And then our Lighthouse extension is living up in our extensions section. Something to note about running the plugin is that it allows you the opportunity to test either on mobile or on desktop, so that you can get a sense of how your mobile site performs versus how your desktop site performs. It's worth noting that this isn't simulating like an iPhone using a 4G connection to access the website. It's just testing the mobile website experience, like, mobile page dimensions and things. So yeah, a little caveat there. And then we'll be testing for all of the categories that it checks. It does take a little bit to run, so I've preloaded it. Up first, we have the mobile test. So bestbuy.com, performance score of 17, and then some other scores. For right now, we're just going to focus on performance. 17 is a red. We're trying to go for high scores here, but it looks like Best Buy's mobile site didn't quite make it. The good news is Google has tried to help by calling out those core, those 6 performance metrics that we've already talked about. First contentful paint, speed index, largest contentful. They even have a kind of load map so you can see how your website is loading by seconds. And then they have some recommendations under here on how to really improve those times. Because these are simulated metrics, some of these numbers might be very surprising. A time to interactive of 32 seconds. Does that mean that if a user goes to bestbuy.com on their phone, it's going to take 30 seconds for them to be able to click on something? Absolutely not. But it does mean that the robots had a hard time getting to the point where they could interact with the website, or maybe there was something that was happening 30 seconds after the page loaded that was significant enough that the robots determined it was 32 seconds to get to interactive. So that does seem like a bit of a downside. Like, what's happening to my website that Google thinks it's taking 32 seconds? Is Google wrong? Maybe, maybe not, but there's probably ways that Google can help us to trim that time to interactive down, and you can make some quick and easy adjustments to improve those scores. So in this case, they say there's 5 seconds of reduced JavaScript, and if we pop the menu open, we can see that they even call out the specific JavaScript commands that are taking up time. The same goes for some of these other things like defer off-screen images. Google is actually going to show you the images that Google recommends that you defer or load later. And then finally, minimize main thread work. Here we see 35 seconds. So this is probably what's contributing to this time to interactive of 32 seconds and 10 seconds almost of total blocking time. And then script evaluation as a subcategory of that is taking up 24 seconds, according to Google. So thankfully, they have a Learn More section. And if we were to click on that, we can see, wow, they have a whole article devoted to how to minimize main thread work. Oh, there's the exact pop-up we were just seeing. And then if we're having an issue with script evaluation, they have a script evaluation section with 3 different recommendations on how to improve these things. So Google really isn't trying to prevent you from getting a good search result score. They're trying to enable us to create performant websites to improve the user experience across the web. So what I put to you as a partner is to go in, download this Lighthouse extension, keep reading about these metrics, run these on a couple of your sites, run them on some competitors' sites, just get a sense of how different websites are performing, and unleash your developers to come in here and start learning about how they can have some best practices to improve these scores and create more performant, more satisfying websites for your end users. And with that, I think we can turn it over to the Q&A.
All right. Thanks, Lincoln. Appreciate that. Jake, do you want to lead us through the Q&A?
Absolutely. So at this point, we'd definitely like to open up the floor for some questions from our partners. Please jot them in Slack or in the messaging if you're viewing on YouTube, and we're looking to see what you guys have to ask. Okay, so one that's coming in, what's the easiest way to improve Lighthouse scores?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as we saw, Google makes it very easy to go into download Lighthouse, run it on the site, and kind of follow their recommendations. But as a general practice, the thing that I see the most often is images. Images are the most memory intensive part of your website. And oftentimes, just because of kind of old habits or not thinking about it, you're serving up the image as it's being stored in your PIM or in Shopify, which is usually an outdated, like a JPEG file or something that hasn't been optimized. Fortunately, front-end frameworks like Vue or React make it very easy with their image components, if you set them up right, to serve up images in next-gen formats like WebP for browsers that support it. And you can also define image dimensions depending on the viewport of the device that is accessing the page. So your mobile users who are looking at a little iPhone SE don't need a 5,000 by 5,000 resolution image on their little phone. So you can adjust that resolution, save a lot of kilobytes, and every image that you optimize means your whole website's going to load faster, especially on the initial page load.
Awesome. We have another question here. How much have you guys seen skeleton components positively affect these metrics?
I will admit that I'm actually not familiar with the term skeleton component. Would you be able to define that a little bit more?
John, would you be able to expand on that?
Oh, I got it here. I just Googled it real quick. So it displays a placeholder preview of your content before the data gets loaded to reduce load time frustration. So that's a great question, John. So that definitely speaks to cumulative layout shift, how much the page is moving as the page loads. So if you're loading in a placeholder preview, this could be an empty box. This could be a blurred image before the full resolution loads. And that's definitely a great way to do it. If you're predefining that part of the web page so that as the web page gets built, it knows that that piece of the page is already going to be occupied, then the image can confine to that and the page doesn't move. So yeah, definitely recommend placeholder skeletons. It will improve cumulative layout shift. While we're talking about it, cumulative layout shift is one of the easiest metrics to improve because all you have to do is get your page to not move. And you can do that using the techniques we just applied. Once you do that, you get a perfect CLS score and you don't have to worry about it again. Good call out, John.
Thanks for the question, John. Looks like another one here. This is an interesting one too. Do the Lighthouse metrics ever change? Do they add new ones?
Yeah, good question there. So Lighthouse, since it's come out and it's been out for about a year now, Lighthouse has not changed or added any metrics, but what they have done is adjusted the weighting. I think it was only about 5%. So as Google is continuing to use Lighthouse and as people are adjusting, Google might make some minute adjustments here and there to better represent the user experience. So you might see your scores shift a little bit, even if you're not changing your website. But the hope is that you're on a continuous improvement trajectory and Google is going to be rewarding that.
Awesome. Let's see here. Another one coming in. Oh, this one's fun. For someone like myself, if I'm very focused on site speed, how often should I check my Lighthouse scores?
Oh man, just sitting there with the refresh button, trying to see if it's getting better.
Yep.
Fortunately, we don't need to do that. Google will continually be adjusting your Lighthouse score based on the user metrics and based on how often they're crawling your website. So you may be seeing it change even if you haven't made any website changes. But that being said, in terms of us sitting here downloading the extension and then running a report for ourselves, I recommend doing that anytime you're pushing code changes. Even when you're trying to fix something, like I had a situation the other day where someone had been improving their images and they were able to shave off 8 megabytes off of their image or their total website payload, which was great. But they also added a few third-party apps in the process of doing that, which increased their total blocking time and affected some of their rendered times. So they thought they were doing fine, but when they check Lighthouse, they see, oh no, we introduced some code and it caused a negative change. So definitely recommend running Lighthouse anytime you're pushing a code change, just to see what's happening in the wild.
Awesome. So then I think when thinking about Lighthouse, how does it differ potentially from other things out there, such as like SpeedCurve?
Yeah, so SpeedCurve, for those who don't know, is a third-party testing tool, and we may have a partner tech talk on that in the future, so stay tuned. But there are a variety of third-party testing tools that you can pay for that provide even more metrics than Google Lighthouse does. Why would this be beneficial? As we saw, Google Lighthouse captures about 6 key metrics. They also do accessibility testing, SEO, other things like that. And then they provide recommendations, which is fantastic. But what they don't do is capture real user data. And what they also don't do is capture dozens of metrics that you would be able to test. So what something like SpeedCurve does, in addition to grabbing all of these metrics that Lighthouse doesn't, and testing on a more regular basis and giving you a dashboard to see it in, is SpeedCurve can simulate the iPhone environment. It can simulate a DSL connection compared to a fiber connection. So if you really wanted to dive deep on what your individual user experience was, like for example, if you had a significant portion of your web traffic was a tablet user, which we see sometimes, you would be able to simulate an iPad accessing your website. So you could see kind of how your website is performing in a tablet view compared to a desktop view, compared to a phone view. So that's where I would recommend third-party tools if you really wanted to get a wider breadth of data and get more specific on your users.
Awesome. So it looks like John's got another question, and then
Yep.
we'll go to, I think her name is Vane. But
Okay.
do you recommend adding any sort of CI/CD pipeline process to check on this stuff automatically? Do you guys see that among clients?
That is a great idea, John. I myself have not seen any of our partners doing that. But that being said, the browser extension is just one of 3 different ways that Google is empowering you to run Lighthouse, and one of them is within the code itself. So if you wanted to, and we definitely encourage that, more data is better. So feel free to look at the Google Docs and see how you can run it from within the code base, maybe even doing it on a cron job, so that you can regularly check to see how your site's doing and how your local builds are.
Excellent. So we definitely have some engagement. So this is great. So Vane's question, can you run Lighthouse report on a site powered by Nacelle?
Yep, great question. Looks like John replied in all caps.
Yeah.
Calm down, John. Calm down. Yeah, so you can absolutely run Lighthouse on any site, and not only that. So to answer your question, yes, you can run it on Nacelle because Nacelle has any site, but you can run it on a public site. You can run it on a Vercel preview link. You can run it on a local build. You can run Lighthouse anywhere where there's code that can get compiled into a website. This makes it really valuable for our partners because with Vercel, you can have a preview deployment and you can have a production deployment. So if you had a live website powered by Nacelle and you had your development environment where you were testing changes, you could run 2 Lighthouse reports and compare how the latest changes will perform before you put them into your production website.
Awesome. Fantastic questions. Don't see any more coming in, but we can wait a moment. Unless, Brian, you think we should close out at this point in time?
No, we can give it another call it 10 seconds. How about that? If anybody has any other questions, you're welcome to ask those at this time. Going in 3, 2, 1. All right. Okay. No more questions. Thank you so much, everybody. for asking such engaging questions. Thank you, Lincoln, for participating on this Partner Office Hour talk. Really appreciate your time. And Jake, thanks for moderating those questions for us and providing us with the updates this morning. And thank you for all of those that watched this session. Grateful to have those that participated. We will take the recording of this session and we will distribute that in the general Slack channel of our Nacelle Partner Workspace. So thanks again for the time, everybody. Make it a great day. Take care.